Surrealism. But of course, the surrealists they allow your imagination to take over, really, and you can put things that are quite disparate, shall we say, or anachronistic. They don't go together, but if you can put them in a way that works. So when I say to you pear trees, you know what I mean, don't you? That's a surrealist view of pear trees, or poolside, and you think, well, but it's about where's the water going and where's that plant come from and what size is that plant, and there's that reflection of the pool here on this wall of is that the side of the pool, and all these little sort of questions come into your mind as you're looking at this painting or picture rather. To sort of hold your attention and to make you challenge perspective and reality, really, like these replicated close-ups of the inside of a arum lily, almost as if they're like something out of Day of the Triffids, aren't they? You're all old enough to remember Day of the Triffids, so hopefully you know what I'm talking about. But I mean, sometimes you just see something that you think is a bit surreal, and you photograph it, as in the Pallant Gallery in Chichester. This was taken. There's a bit of surrealist art behind it, and then you try and create your own version of it. So we got the sort of the girl looking through the atrium of this art gallery in Tampa, in Florida, and of course she wasn't there. It was just a glass ceiling, as it were. But I've taken the glass ceiling out and popped her into the scene. Or, I mean, this is a bit of a cliche, actually. I don't know. I almost feel I don't want to show something like this, but the Man in the Moon, but there we go. That sort of thing can sort of create something a little out of the ordinary. But of course, this chap here, Dali, we all know about his melting clocks and his lobster telephone, don't we? Well, in St. Petersburg, Florida, there is a Dali museum. And so I'm photographing here from the car park, because it's his signature on the side of the building. And I've overlaid that photo of him just to sort of give a bit of context. And so we know we're in the Dali gallery, as it were. And then within it, you've got his artwork. And I mean, I just put this in because I think it's absolutely fascinating. You've got to look at this and see two possible pictures. There's a picture of a girl looking in towards the sunset, but there's also a picture of Abraham Lincoln. So if as you're sitting looking at this, can you all just squint as you're looking at this? If you squint, you can see Abraham Lincoln's beard down the bottom here, his eye just about there somewhere. But it's a bit like that feeling of Seurat when he was putting his dots onto pictures. You imagine, how on earth do you create that and then step back and look at it again and step back and squint your eyes at it to see what you can find? Oh, here we are, still in the gallery at the Dali place. And we're looking at that. And then on the other side of this glass wall, there is the garden. There it is. You can see the glass wall that I've just been photographing from the inside of this museum. But look, in the garden, they've got a great big moustache. Of metalwork. You can go and stand beside it and have your photo taken. You've got your melting clocks on the bench there. All sorts of interesting things. So I was then trying to create my own sort of style of Dali, and you had the melting clocks. And I've got this picture of this sort of drops of blood on a heart thing here and a clock. And so this is called Dial M for Murder. Good title. Dial M for Murder. I mean, this is just an example of the juxtaposition of elements that sometimes can create a surreal feel. It's not a strong picture, but I just like the fact that we've got this. Obviously, there was some sort of exhibition with both Dali and Warhol. But look, we've got Warhol standing on top of the telegraph lights there. I mean, as I say, it's nothing special, but if you can see something like that in a picture, something sort of like a double take, that twists reality, that's something that's gonna, give you added value. So, I'm trying to create my sort of Dali-like picture here with the replication of the birds in the sky and the distant, desert scene, but with the water in front. So, a desert shouldn't have water in front of it. It should be sand, but it's got water in front of it. And, the girl seemingly is just sort of bathing there. And this is a surreal photograph because we went to the Surrealist exhibition up at Tate Modern. And this is my friend Roger. He's a member of our Canberra club. And so we went up together. And this is what, if you look at the next picture, I call his Harry Worth moment. Can you all remember Harry Worth? And at the beginning of the Harry Worth program, he would stand in the shop doorway, and he'd sort of swing his arms up, and you'd see the sort of like a mirror image. And I felt that we got a little bit of that with this picture of Roger. So it's not really surreal, but it is in the way that you've got two versions of him coming round the edge of the exhibit there. Miro. And again, in the surreal style, had all of these really weird and wonderful effects. And can you replicate them in film, in the camera? Well, all these sort of strange lines and isomorphic forms, I think they call them. You might find them in, again, reflections in steel. So we're at Birmingham here at the Union Station, and, that's really, for me, all broken up and distorted reality. Or here in California at Redondo Beach at the marina there, the water was so still, but there were all these boats and buildings all around it, and it had that had quite a, as I say, painterly feel to it. I feel like there's an object here in the foreground, some with an eye and sort of ears or horns, some sort of fawn or something, I don't know, but all of these things that you might well find in reality or on the computer. So this is my Miro. It's called the Matador, and I mean this is meant to be a bull because we got the horns and the eyes down there, and it's this sort of purple look, and then we've got the Matador, and this red bit is his cape. And he's standing there in the middle of this circle of sand, which is the ring, the bull ring. You believe that? You'll believe anything. Anyway, this one, again, using one of the pen effects in Photoshop, you can sort of bring the lines around and swirl around them. So all I'm doing is just drawing on the screen and then applying colour. So this is called at Sahara. This one's Sahara. So here we were. You remember we were in Tenerife and we saw some Picasso in the shopping centre? Well, there was actually some Miro there as well. So this is Miro's work, and it was reflected in the window. And I quite like the flooring, which was sort of very. So here's a straight shot, folks. So we've got the outside of the shop here. There's the doorway, the window to the shop, the doorway to the shop, the next window to the shop. And on that window, we're reflecting that one. On this one, we're reflecting that one. And I thought these lovely reflections really worked very well. But it just perhaps needed something else. So I then took a mannequin from another picture and placed her in the scene. Now, that's won the Print of the Year competition at both my Canberra club and at the Disabled Photographers Annual Exhibition. And it's called Fashion Reflecting Fashion. And it works well in mono as well as it does in colour, but I think the colour version's better because it's got the bright reds of the Miro, So what happened there? Did I go the wrong way? Oh well. And lots of people have used the work of Miro in their work. Dave Brubeck, this is Time Further Out, the second of his big albums, using a Miro at the front. And here, his first one, Time Out, Take 5. Again, using that same sort of, it's not a Miro, but it's that style of the Surrealists. So, we'll move on, because another Surrealist painter, or picture, well, he was painter, as you can see from this picture here, but he was also quite often seen as a painter, a photographer as well. And this is Man Ray, or Emanuel Raditsky, had his muse, who was Lee Miller. And so can I create those? Well, actually, this is more photographic than it is painterly. But what I've got is these light swirls and the moon and this profile from a statue, but giving it a little white edge because he did a lot of post-flashing to get some of these posterized effects. So that's called the goddess Luna. And of course there's the sort of copy of the girl with the clef on her back. And then another occasion where I'm using quite strong shadow and the crucifix, or rather rosary rather, to sort of, and that's on a mannequin. It's not a body, it's a mannequin. Or this same surreal thing, you saw the red lips a little bit earlier on, and so we've got the two overlaid, but with the lips coming through the back. So, these are the possibilities. One thing that Man Ray came up with, something called a ray graph. And it was this sort of posterized black and white effect on a portrait. So here we have Mary Quant, and there's the posterized version, or the rayograph version of her work. Now I have to say that Magritte, I find his work really interesting and I've used it several times in photos. And just another little tip is that, if you see a good idea, then maybe you can make use of it. So I'd like this idea of the girl looking into the screen. It was called Evening Dress. Okay, that one. Remember that one. I mean, the bowler hat is sort of iconic, isn't it? And so let's press on. So here's my cross-dresser. So in the style of Magritte, we've got the cross-dresser. We've got the bar stool with the bowler hat on the top. We've got the cane connecting the bar stool to the floor. And at the floor, we've got the high heel shoes, and we're in a desert, a landscape, and a different bird. Or this one, which is, again, this one's done really well because it's so quirky. People either love it or they hate it. So it either gets 14 or it gets 20. I don't know if you do 20s or 10s, but it'll either get 6 or 10 or 14 or 20. How does that work? I don't know. But, I've just got the bowler hat and this really interesting sky, and I just felt, what do I do? Well, to create the Magritte version, you say, I've now got something called A Walk in the Rain. Another version of it. There we go. Or this one, using the bowler hat and the cane again, but with the face lost completely by putting a rose in front of it and slightly distorting it. And then probably my most successful photograph is called Evening Dress. Do you remember I said Evening Dress about the girl standing there looking into the sea? Well, this one has won a gold medal and been represented in the visual arts group of the Royal Photographic Society. And again, the girl's looking into the distance. It's Evening Dress. The building is actually the Delaware Pavilion at Bexhill. And a picture of the moon to complete it. And again, other things, raining phones, again, the sort of thing that Magritte might do. The phones change in size as they're further away. Let's move on to another interesting character called Escher. You'll recognise his work. It's so distinctive, very rectilinear and detailed and complicated sort of stairs going up and down, animals and elements changing, from a seagull to a bomb, and as I say, the stairs going up and down. So overlaying 3 or 4 elements together gives you that same feel of what's this? This is an electric violin, electric guitar, but where's it going and where are the edges and so on. And this one, is called Hall of Mirrors, and the stairs are going up and down, and you might think, well, where's that come from? Let me show you where I got the photos to create this picture. So there we are at the Hyatt Regency in Atlanta. And in the atrium of that central, they've got these lifts going up and down. Here, in Logan Airport, Boston, the ceiling, remember the ceiling. So if we now go back, 1, 2, I've changed and reduced the richness of the colour, but there's now an integral version of the stairs going up and going down and something really otherworldly. Let's move on. And so remember that ceiling, because on the next picture you'll see it again in a different way. There. So this is Urban Canyon, cityscape into the unknown, and again, basically those figures were on the Millennium Bridge in London, and the ceiling, of course, that's from Boston, and then I put a different sky in. So, the possibilities are endless, and this Escher chap, he did these lovely overlays of things, and so I've got these buildings in New York, and he used a pencil, black and white, to a lot of effect, so I retained the monochromatic effect in there, but it's sort of like a collage, and these buildings aren't ever next to each other, they're just placed here to create that effect. And this one called Changing Perspective, again, we're going upstairs and we're going downstairs, all within the same sort of photograph. And what I had to do was, you could, in this space, this little corner at the bottom here, you could see the floor of the next level. So what I've done is taken that sort of effect and put it into here so that it's not obviously on two layers. Hopper. So he's a bit of a voyeuristic artist, is Hopper, and he photographed, or rather painted, all sorts of sort of underlife of America, really, but also real life in America of the period, which isn't easy to replicate because all of these are all set in time, really. But I did think if I could try and come up with something of a similar sort of style. So here you can see we've got the sort of the feeling of the triptych that we saw in the previous. Can we go back? There we go. Top right, triptych, window, people inside, and he's looking in on them, So here we go with the same sort of idea of the evening shot. So we've got the blueness of the evening and the warmth of the tungsten light on the inside of the building, and a similar version here, just a different type of sort of figures within it to give you that feeling of looking in on life and them not knowing what you're looking in on. Or on this occasion, we were in Georgetown, Washington D.C., and there are these what you call sorority buildings where the students are who are studying there. It's like college digs, I suppose. So I got a photograph of the building, and then I created, as I say, an evening shot and put the different people into the windows as if they were just standing there and not knowing that we were there. Or in this occasion, in Florida, we photographed this cafe. Now, in the other Hopper pictures, you saw Nighthawks and you saw the people inside the cafe. So I'm now trying to create a Hopper. So it didn't have a car, did it? Let's say, you go back. So we put the car into the front, suitable car. It didn't have any light, so I've lit the windows. And also I've made sure that the tone of the warmth of these lights is shining on the car, because otherwise it's not believable that the car is there. And then putting the figures in. So, how does that look in terms of Photoshop? Well, here we go. Look, if you look down here, follow this layer. This is my screenshot of the starting point with no lit up windows and no car. Layer 1 is where I've lit up the windows. Layer 2 is where I've put in the car. 3, 4 and 5 are where we've got adjustment layers to get that yellowy effect on the car. And then 6 and 7 are the two people in the windows. And I've got 7 and 8 and another place where I've got two more people in another window if you need them. There we go. But then, as I say, he was also painting in a sort of realistic style as well, American life. So here got just a fairly straightforward shot with a bit of HDR and another one in the style of Hopper. Here's Georgia O'Keeffe, and it's nice to have a lady artist in amongst here. She was partly famous for being married to Alfred Stieglitz, the famous photographer. And after a while of living together, they separated, and she went to live in New Mexico. And she started painting. And she painted in a very free style, but some of her work looks quite erotic as well. But she liked doing big pictures of birds, of flowers, but you can see this sort of the New Mexico influence, can't you, in these particular photographs? Because we've got the landscape up there, we've got the head of the sort of the bleached head of the cattle and so on. But as I say, there's also these other forms of flowers. She really did enjoy doing big versions of flowers. So here we go. So I've got a picture of a sort of a bleached head of a cattle. So I'll put that into this background. This background actually is Margate Beach, and the clouds in the distance there, the sand of Margate, the sky, and some clouds, but defocused, so that it's not obvious what it is at all, really. And then the two repeated forms of the rose. I think maybe the drop shadow's a bit strong on that. I regret that being a little bit harsh, but and then, you know, she worked in, as I say, in New Mexico with all the red rocks and buttes and mesa and buttes and so on. So I got this backdrop of what I thought was the sort of style of that, and then I've dropped in front of it the flowers that she painted and drew extensively. This is a peony from my back garden. And, you know, I think it worked reasonably well, actually. Quite like that one. And here we are, straight shot to a certain extent, except it's had the oil paint effect applied to it. So here we are in just south of Arizona, in the Vermilion Cliffs area near the Grand Canyon. And this cactus was flowering in the style of Georgia O'Keeffe, or in Utah. Again, the swirls of these rocks and areas, just like she would paint them, really. Or getting in close on a rose. Excuse me. This has had, I've inverted this, so that's why we've got these blacks and blues, because, yeah, it's like a negative, colour negative of the original. And the, you know, saguaro cactus. Well, one of the first ideas that I got for this talk was from getting a picture that I thought looked a bit like a Lowry. And of course, trying to replicate a Lowry today is impossible, because all of these scenes that he was drawing had disappeared completely. If you would come to any of these, you might find some of these streets, but you're going to find them full of cars and people. You're probably not see any people. They'd just be full of cars, won't they, in yellow lines. So it's pretty much impossible. But if you find a place, so here we are on Blackpool Beach. We're using the dry brush effect, which is sort of reducing the sort of detail within the figures to make them very much more sort of Lowry-like. Similarly here, similar sort of thing. And the people walking around. And I think because you're on a beach, all of the individuals become sort of separate and apart from each other. I think it makes it work more easily. Now that was dry brush, but this is motion blur. So we're using a sort of a similar situation, but this time we're moving we're doing it post-processing to get, and slightly stretching the figures so they're not too sort of realistic, shall we say. But this was the picture that I took that gave me the idea of doing the whole talk, really. A local park in the snow, and I just loved the sort of involvement of everybody and the sort of busyness of it, and yet every single sort of figure is slightly separate. You know, there's no overlap. They all are playing and busy until you get to the top, and then you've got this line of people at the top of the hill, mums and dads looking down, and using a dry brush effect. That's again given me the Lowry-like feel. Here we are in Helsinki, same sort of idea, looking down on the crowds. And because you've got a highish viewpoint, you've got actually quite a good sort of separation again of the individuals. Or here in Paris, this kindergarten again got the sort of same feel of Lowry from it. Lots of little people playing around. It's a typical nursery. They're playing, but they're all on their own. Or you know, snow helping you along here. So we got the blizzard, and it's called Blizzard Dancing because of the girl at the front here. But again, this is a slow shutter speed, so you know, probably half a second, if not longer. So it's sort of picking up the movement of the figures in of their bodies as they move through the scene. or here at Tate Modern, looking down onto the concourse. And what I've done here is actually to create that slightly more Lowry-like feel. They're all been stretched slightly. You might, now I've told you that, you probably can see it. Before I told you that, you might not have realised, but they've all been given a slight stretch, so it makes them longer and thinner and more stick-like matchstick men, you know. So, abstract expressionism came in after the Second World War, and in St Ives, but mainly in New York, and this sort of thing was being created. These sort of splashes of colour like that. That's typical Patrick Heron, as you saw a moment ago, his sort of work. But you can just create all sorts of weird and wonderful things. You think, well, where's that come from? Well, actually, that's the side of a container that had been painted very nicely. Then I created a little jitter effect on it to get that. So who's the preeminent one? I guess it's Jackson Pollock. Here he is, with all of his sort of drip paintings. We've got 20 minutes to go. I think we're on time. Can I just say, this one in the bottom right-hand corner, that looks perfect for a Pollock, doesn't it? But actually, that is a picture of the floor of his studio. I think it's quite telling. Anyway, moving on, here's a Pollock. Now, how do you create a Pollock like this? Well, you use the B setting on your camera, so you hold the button down, the shutter down, it holds the aperture open until you let go. So you can move the camera around and get that sort of line effect. So come to this one, that's a 30-second exposure, holding the bulb setting, the B setting, so the camera is open all the while on a full frame camera, 30 seconds, and wired for sound, you know. That's a Pollock. Or on this occasion, using a speed filter. So we're in New York, somewhere like the top of the Rock, I think, somewhere like that, Rockefeller Building, looking down into Manhattan, and on using, as I say, the speed filter. And then, of course, what happens is I put in the moon just above there, and it can be called Moonrise Manhattan then, can't it? Or in Las Vegas. Again, it's camera movement. Just as you're photographing, there's movement in the camera to get these lights to... So we get Electric Avenue, that's that one. Or this one with these light swirls, add a bit of colour, change the colour if you want to. It's marvellous, isn't it, Photoshop? So here, our Rothko, who I always thought was a bit... What's the word? Bit dreary, ordinary. I mean, how does his work go for so much money when it appears to be just field painting? That's what they call it, field painting. These just patches of colour. Well, I don't know. I mean, I could certainly find patches of colour in photographic terms. So here we are, a sort of outlet in Birmingham, plastic building with blue sky. Or I could find, things, line effects that are painted onto concrete. But painting, or rather creating one in Photoshop, seemed a bit of a plagiaristic approach. But then I started trying to create something that was a bit more movement and blur and blending 2 or 3 bits together. So that's called Orange Neutrino or Neutrino Orange. And this one is basically, it's in Lille, and it was the Beaux-Arts Museum, and I've ended up adding tones and colours to the effect there. And here, you see, apparently, I didn't realise this, but you're meant to look at a Rothko and study it for half an hour before you start to see all the different hints of tone coming out of it. I don't know. Anyway, just to say, the bit that I most enjoyed, I think, in the period of doing this talk, was the pop art bit. And it began with Richard Hamilton, who sort of, bit like Hannah Hock. She was the lady we looked at a little bit earlier, the Marlena lady, where she cut out things and pasted them together. And he was trying to create, the way modern life is now, with all of these, the Charles Atlas figure, the tape recorders and things like that. So I then thought to myself, well, what can I do? Obviously, so in the same way that he had his Marilyn pictures, I put a Marilyn picture in there. There's me sunflowers again over there, and then just this sort of mix of bits and pieces, and then the modern interior with a Hoover. Or this one, same girl, and you recognise her. There she is, same girl. This time another different bar stool, and again the overlay of bits and pieces in that Robert Hamilton style. And these pop artists, they were very much appropriating work from other places, really. Peter Blake, for instance, he would cut out all sorts of. Okay, he did these screen prints, but the starting point of these was photographs that he'd taken from magazines and things, and he was sticking things together in the style of icons of the period. So he had these grid ideas, so he would put together icons of the period. Like we've got the pop icons of the Who, we've got the Mickey Mouse and things like that. So I'm now thinking, well, perhaps I can do something like that. So here's my version. This was my very personal grid, I suppose, because it was for my wife. So we start with the arrow, sort of thing that he would have. Then I was born in 1949, so I put that one in there. Then there's a picture of her when she was a child, and then a picture when when I got to know her. And that camera, the Ilford Sportsman, that was the first one I had as a sort of a teenager, first proper camera. And I learned to drive a Mini. There's me younger. And then sort of Love Heart and Eagle Comics and Gosh and Love and the Mini. That's my wife's legs and the mini skirt that she used to wear. And I'm an Ipswich Town supporter, so I had to have that in there. And I like Marmite, not that everybody does, and so on and so forth. So that was my take on Peter Blake. And do you remember 45s? Remember 45s? 6 and 8pence they were, weren't they? 6 and 8pence for years and years and years. There was no inflation. So there's my wife again when she was 19, and got that sort of replication of triptych, as it were, there. But the other thing that Peter Blake was doing, as were others in the pop art, was taking icons of the period and sort of creating grids of them. So I used some magazines that I'd saved, Life magazines I'd got, and one or two well-known characters there. No, there we go. Another one of the wife's legs and the Coca-Cola. You remember that song, The Real Thing? Julie Christie, icon of the period. And I found this magazine where she was modelling these jumpers. So again, if someone else took those pictures, yes. They are of the period, and then what I've done is to put them all together in a way they were never put together before, and also then overlay them with these smeary, painterly sort of effects to give the impression of them being almost painted as well. Now he, you see, did the same thing, this chap. He was very much an appropriating stuff, wasn't he? He copied bits and pieces, the well-known Che Guevara picture, and this one of his, which is famous Jews of the 20th century, and he met Mick Jagger, and he helped with the Sticky Fingers album. He did the photographs for that. That was. So then I'm thinking, well, if I've got some bits of Warhol's work, can I use them in a particular way? Well, I got this photograph which didn't have the Elvis. It was just the girl looking in here as if she was looking towards somebody, but there was no one there. Coming up the steps, I'm looking this way, she's looking that way. So it needed something in that void, didn't it? So this is called Elvis Is in the Building. And it's one of Warhol's screen prints, and it's been dropped in at that point to make the picture work. When I was teaching in southeast London, I became head of a school, and I found a stash of negatives and slides that I don't know where they'd ever come from, but in amongst them was this one of Mick Jagger. And so I'm using it in the style of the Che Guevara picture, shall we say, to create that sort of weird and wonderful effect. It's the same picture 4 times, but with different coloured elements to it. And similarly here, the one picture of my wife in 1969, miniskirts were so short, weren't they? Well, anyway, that was 1969, and that's how it looks if you were doing it in the style of Andy Warhol, or his Campbell soups and things like that. This actually slightly out of place because this is not Warhol, but it's a photographer called Robert Heineken. And he called himself a para-photographer because what he'd take were photographs of magazines and combine them in interesting ways, as we have in that particular picture there, which I think is real pop art. Or here, where you're combining a picture of the girl and graffiti on the wall. You remember I mentioned about Warhol's famous Jews? Well, here it is again. This is a straight shot, isn't it? I mean, basically, this is a record shot of the Warhol Gallery in the Hammer Museum in Jacksonville. Robert Lichtenstein. Now, I think he was denigrated in his early days because he was just like a comic artist. But his work goes for millions these days, and he used this sort of half-tone effect that we've got here on the black and white version of the woman in a bath. And he created these, as I say, very painterly, comic-like effects. So here we go. Here's my version of his splash, bang, wallop sort of things. Can I just say that this picture here I put onto Adobe Stock as a PNG, which means that they can move it around and make use of it as a sort of a moving graphic. And I've sold it about 15 to 16 times on Stock, Adobe Stock. I only get $1 a time, but all helps, doesn't it? And there's my wife again, using that half-tone effect, sort of a girl in sunglasses, woman in sunglasses, in the style of Robert Lichtenstein. And now then, let's just take you through the process of creating a Lichtenstein, if I may. So here we've got this young lady, and I want it to have that half-tone effect. But of course it goes right across the face, across the eyes, across the eyebrows. Too heavy, so it doesn't work. So you need something a little lighter in tone, and one that doesn't cross the lips, or the eyes, or the eyebrows. So now we're getting somewhere. That works better. But I'm now giving it a bit more, what you might call oomph. Do you see how the contrast changed then? Let's go back. See, the contrast has changed. So that's an adjustment layer to a bit more boost to the contrast within the picture. And then, of course, what do you get in a Lichtenstein? You get speech bubbles. Okay, so here we go. Hi, lover. And on the side, here's a screenshot. What have we got? We've got the girl. And then we had that very heavy blackened dot. Didn't work. So I've gone to the lighter dot. But I've got a mask here covering the mouth, the eyes, and the eyebrows. Then remember, it needed a bit more contrast. So look, there's a curves adjustment layer to give you that more of an oomph that I was looking for. And then, of course, we needed the speech bubble at the bottom there. That's that one. And then we need the text, and that's the text layer. So those are all the elements that go together to make that. I hope that was not too quick. You know what I'm talking about. So there we go. Another photographer who's in the pop art style is James Rosenquist. And he used very much sort of modern day icons, Coke cans, and a bit like Warhol. Here, for instance, Murder, Mayhem and Mystery, I think it's called. There's David Bowie just in there, a little slice of David Bowie just to help the picture along. And then we've got a gun shooting towards us, and really, but they're all in look like triptychs or square grids or something. So what can we get? Oh yes, just to mention my favourite James Rosenquist was this one, 1961. I Love You with My Ford, and we got the Ford at the top, and then we got the girl in the middle and the spaghetti. So I then thinking, well, these triptychs work, don't they? He obviously chooses American icons, so we got Denny's Diner, an American car with the swept back wing, and then of course we got the Statue of Liberty and the other little elements in that particular triptych. So that's American icons. And then you remember that I Love My Ford with the spaghetti? So we've got the same sort of thing here. Look, we've got the hot rod. We've got the girl in the middle. That's my wife again. On our honeymoon sometime back 50, 60, 55 years ago. And a hot dog. So hot rod, hot stuff, hot dog. So sometimes though, you can get a straight shot, which is a triptych. So this is a straight shot. It's in Blackpool and it's some graffiti or mural, more than graffiti, isn't it? And this little line here is the edge of a wall. So that's one wall, and coming out towards me is the next wall with the girl. So that's why she's a bit distorted in the way she's looking here. But I quite like the fact that she's distorted in this sort of Blackpool triptych, shall we say. Or this one of David Bowie, a triptych taken off the television. These are copied from the TV, one of his videos, just to try and get that effect. So now here's, again, we're going to just take you through the process. Good title. I hope you like the title of this one. It's called We Boarded a Greyhound in Pittsburgh. Remember Simon and Garfunkel? Their album, America? We boarded a Greyhound in Pittsburgh. So here's the Greyhound. Here's the girl. Here's America. Here's a motel on Route 66. And how does that get put together? Well, goodness me, it's Margate Beach again. Would you believe it? And then the girl in the middle with the same sort of tonal value to the picture, to the backdrop. So we've got those same sort of steely blues and creams. Then we've got the blue of the Greyhound bus. And fortunately, there's a lightness here, which means the Greyhound can get into the gap there. Then we put in the other one. Just beware of overlaps. So in this bit, it's okay. But when we see the final picture, you'll see that I've actually deleted a little bit of the ear so that there isn't overlap at that point there. We add in the text and we're there. And these are the layers. Just as I said before, we've got the girl, we've got the background, we've got the Greyhound bus, girl in the middle, the America, and the layer. But when you see the next one, just watch out for the bit by the arrow, the red arrow there. With a bit of luck, that's not there now. There's the finished version. Now, you see, I really enjoyed doing this. I think it's really iconic for America. It's real pop art. But to tell you the truth, not many people have ever liked it. And I don't know why. I can't work it out. But there we go. Hockney, remember him? Well, because he went to America. I've got about 5 minutes, so I think I can just about make it. 5 minutes to talk about Hockney and a couple of others. Went to escape because he was homosexual, so he wanted to, have the freer life of America, California. So a lot of his pictures had swimming pools with reflections, had young men in it. And then he also did the joiners, didn't he? A bit like we've got with Pear Blossom Avenue or Pear Blossom Highway. Just there, lots of pictures all joined together. So here's my joiner version of Chattanooga, the bridge at Chattanooga. And here is my wife again. And this one's called Heterosexual Hockney in Hollywood. Heterosexual Hockney in Hollywood. And of course, what's it got? It's got all these lovely reflections in the water. It's got the sign there. But this time it hasn't got a man, it's got a woman. So that was the first version, but I decided that actually it looked better when it was in a square format. So, square format is sometimes a better way forward. You wasted space on the right-hand side there. Don't need it. And then another is Joiners, California. California, San Francisco. So we're at the Coit Tower. If you ever go to San Francisco, the Coit Tower is the best place to view the city skyline. But I then reduced the colour because I think the colour got in the way. So about 35 layers there, or this overlay of 2 or 3 pictures to Ventura Highway, or the trees of the palm trees. There we go, straightforward shot, not a painting, but a picture, a photograph. But it's California. Oops. So now we've got 2 artists to go. Patrick Caulfield. 3 to go. Patrick Caulfield. Now he, as you can see, reduced colour completely. It was almost like comic painting again, that sort of thing. So you can do that, and we've just replaced all of our all of our old lights with LEDs. So these old lights were redundant, but they all had quite graphic looks, so I photographed them. Or, another one where I've used a chair. Well, that was a proper chair, but what I've done is I've drawn around it and filled it with colour and given it a black edge to sort of give that feel. And the old Ilford Sportsman, just the elements of a camera just filled in with colour, and strong colour at that. Or even this one, I've made that bathroom up. That's a new bathroom made out in Photoshop, but the pictures in the windows and on the mirror are my own, as it were. And Joe Tilson, pop artist, he used to like using sort of the graphics of slides to illuminate. So the mouth there with the slide around it. So and again, he used icons like Warhol. So this is Bad Boys of the 60s, Manson, Hopper, Dylan, Oswald. And then that idea of using the negative. So we've got the same picture in the negative and the same picture. That's the same picture in the positive, using the there we are. And then another little bit of a quad tick. What's it called? A quad tick? I don't know, but there's the girl in there looking through the keyhole. We've got another one. Bit of op art. Victor Vasarely. I'm going to be speeding through this now because I realise we've reached 10 o'clock. But, in Photoshop that's so easy to do, isn't it? Put these little shapes together. Add a bit of blur. Add a bit of reality to these if you want to. It's up to you. Bit of distortion. So we're using the polar coordinates to create a blobby effect, or using liquify to get that effect as well. So this is all the op art style. Then there's another chap here. I just put him in because I think he's so interesting. This chap Terry Frost. He just distilled everything down to shape and colour. But some of it, like this one, there's a harbour at Newland or something like that. These are boats, and the sun at the top there, and autumn down the bottom here, and things like that. And these circular shapes. So again, I'm thinking I could do that, and so this is called positive negative because this is the positive and that is the negative. Or this one, which is called Caribbean Moon Rise. Caribbean Moonrise. So we've got a Caribbean island and its reflection. We've got the moon and its reflection, and a yacht. Oh, perhaps I should have a reflection. I don't know. Or Caribbean sun. All of these in the style of Terry Frost. Or Uluru. Remember Uluru? It's Ayers Rock for those who don't know. Ayers Rock in the middle of Australia. It's got a very distinctive shape, and so that's my version of the Terry Frost one. And finally, 5 pictures to go. Fibre art. If you ever tried fibre art, you can create these really interesting. So you can sometimes see reality. It's like these Rorschach blot tests. That's called lovebirds because the pattern created this sort of feeling of one bird here, one bird there, and then I slightly sort of manoeuvred it around there to get the 2 birds' heads together. Or this is called gravitational waves because it's all about the cosmos and the chaos within the cosmos. Gravitational waves. And then sometimes you can get there's the result of doing fibre art, and then you maybe add a bit of ripple to it to give a different effect. So you're creating your own abstracts. But they don't have to be abstract, you see. So what I've got here is something called Solar Cathedral. So basically, the right-hand side of the picture was what I spotted, this, and I flipped it. So we've now got a window at the end of the cathedral. We've got these vaulted ceilings within the cathedral, this heavenly light shining through, but we got no real reference point. So I then took a picture of an altar, popped it down there to finish the picture off. And that is your lot. So I'm